Yeah, I thought, what a perfect topic for me, because I do like my actions. I'm a very active person. But there's also a side of me that is longing for stillness. In fact, I'll share a secret with you. Before I started meditating, I used to say to everyone all the time, in my next birth, I'm going to be a three-toed sloth. Because I don't know if you know three-toed sloths, but they're very slow, they're very lazy, they look a bit stupid, and they hang upside down from trees. And I thought, that would be quite a nice change. But then I discovered meditation, which isn't quite being that, but it's a lot stiller. But I'm interested in that, the paradox, or the, the kind of the opposites of action and inaction. And we, all of us, every day, so many times a day, are facing that yes, no, shall I, shan't I? And how do I help myself in that moment make a decision that I'm going to be comfortable with? And my own feeling is that there's one kind of short-term thing and then there's a long-term thing, and they're both connected actually with meditation. But in that second, before I rush into a reaction or I rush into a response to some feeling inside or whatever, can I give myself that little time of stillness just to check in with myself and then go into the action or then respond? So that's kind of in the moment, but then longer term, and what we're doing in meditation is not just hiding ourselves away to be still and to be that three-toed sloth that I'll never be. What we're doing in meditation is actually mental maneuvers. I'm practicing training myself to stay in a state of calm and clarity no matter what happens. And I should say I'm nowhere near that yet, but I'm working on it. And I know I'm on the right path, and I'm getting better. But that's the aim, is that can I, with everything I do, with every response I make, with every reaction, with every thing, everything I say, can I come from a place that's aligned with my values and what I believe in and what I'm comfortable with? Because if it comes from my values, then even if it doesn't happen to work out the way I'd like, even if someone doesn't like what I've said or what I've done, I know in my heart that that's the right thing. And there's a lovely word in Hindi, which I've learned, and it's called chen, and it's translated as comfort. But actually, someone gave a very nice translation of it recently, which is, it's the feeling I have when I've done what I know is right. And it's not I'm right, I did the right thing. It's not an arrogant feeling, but it's just a quiet sense of, yes, that feels comfortable with me. And I think this whole path, and we're all on a path, a spiritual path, the whole path is coming closer to that space inside myself where I am acting according to my values. I am comfortable with what I'm doing, with what I'm saying, what I'm thinking. And it is a path, and it's not always straight, and it's not always easy, or whatever, but that's what I'm trying to do. What I'm learning to do is reduce the gap between what my aim is, what I believe in, and what I'm actually doing, how I'm actually behaving. And in terms of, that yes, no, right, wrong, shall I, shan't I, what are the things that are going to help me, and what are the things that are going to get in the way? So I'll share some thoughts, and then afterwards, a little bit later, we can have a meditation. So, and also I'd really love us to have some questions at the end, some, feedback, ideas from you, because it's much more interesting if we cook this dish together rather than it just coming from me. So please do contribute at the end. How does that sound? Okay? Okay, so actually I'm going to start if that's okay, without talking, I'm just going to start by taking us into a meditation. And so just sit comfortably, feet on the floor if that's comfortable for you, just that you're stable and steady. And I'd like you to imagine that you're leaning out of a window in a very beautiful part of nature, somewhere that you really love. It can be real or it can be imagined, but somewhere that you'd really love to be right now. And you're leaning out of the window and you're looking out into the most beautiful expanse of sunset sky. So you're just surrounded by a sky that is glowing a kind of golden red light. And just looking at this sky relaxes you, takes your mind into another place, away from the busyness of the day, away from the journey getting here, away from all the things to do tomorrow. And instead you're just leaning out of the window and letting your eyes just rest on this beautiful sunset and experiencing that warm glow and something deeply touching you deep in your heart. And it's saying to you, everything's okay. You can rest now. You can relax. You can just enjoy watching the sunset. And in the sunset there are just lots and lots of little tiny sparkling stars. And you just love to see them sparkle. Each star independent. Each one bringing its own sparkle. And just looking at this scene of the sunset and the stars, it's like you imagine yourself being one of those stars, separate from your body, from your personality, just light. Beautiful, sparkling light. And how free this makes you feel. How still, how safe and comfortable. And now you decide to come back into the awareness of the room you're in, and you gently close the window and turn into the room. But you keep with you those feelings that you woke up in yourself of the expanse of beautiful sky, the sparkling star, and the radiant glow of it all. Thank you. I just wanted, after your busy day, to bring us together in a way that we could just enjoy that stillness together. And in a way it's connected with this whole action and inaction theme, because we live in a world of constant action. So many actions, just in one day, just in 1 hour. So many things to do, to respond to think about, but also that need of the soul to be still, to be quiet, and to know what to do when I come into action. because action just on themselves can be meaningful or not very meaningful, can be satisfying or unsatisfying. And so, action is all about doing. It's all about using my physical body. It's all about expressing myself. That's the kind of common understanding of action. But actually, if any of you, and probably many of you have been interested in the whole concept of karma, which actually means action, karma is actually not just what I do physically with my arms and legs and whatever, the rest of my body, but it's what I think. So even what I'm thinking is an action, because it's an expression of the soul. It's an expression of that being who I really am inside. And so whatever comes, and the theory of karma is that what you sow, you reap. Whatever you do will in some way, from some direction, not necessarily the same one, and at some time, whatever I do will come back to me. And just having that understanding and respect for what action actually is, which is not just picking up a glass or saying a few words or whatever it is, chopping carrots. There is a sacredness actually in every action. And, I could get up and hand you a pen in a very ordinary way. Or I could interact, I could see the beauty of you, I could see the value of the pen, and I could hand it to you in that way. I, a soul, sharing something that's useful with you. It seems silly in a way, but everything we do can be given a beauty, can be given something that is dignified, that is sacred. And to what extent am I giving myself the time to do that with all the actions I'm doing in the day? And by the way, I'm speaking to myself before I'm speaking to you when I'm saying all of this. So it's not just a case of what action I'm doing, but why I'm doing it. What's the intention behind it? Am I just doing it because I've always done it? Am I doing it because everyone else is doing it? Am I doing it because somebody's expecting it? Am I doing it out of compulsion or because I think it looks good? It's very interesting to just become aware. And this is really what meditation and Raja Yoga is all about. It's about becoming much more aware of the value and the importance of everything that I do, why I'm doing it, and how I'm doing it. I remember reading a feedback form of, it was a retreat centre we have in Worthing, and there was a weekend retreat there. And at the end, everyone was asked, what was the most moving spiritual experience of this weekend? And somebody had written, I happened to be passing the kitchen, and I observed someone and the way they were slicing the tomatoes. So the next time you slice tomatoes, remember that story. And then let's think about inaction. So inaction can seem, am I avoiding something? Am I putting it off? Am I just waiting to see how things work out, and hopefully it'll work out better, or hopefully the idea will come? Or I'm actually using inaction in a quite active way, which is to actually give myself that time to be still, and to sit with myself, to sit with my conscience, to sit with my heart and say, what feels right for me? Because when a situation comes up, or when there's a difficult decision to make, where do we go? When you've got something that's come up and you have to make a decision, what's your instant reaction? Any thoughts? Go for a walk. Anything else? Just sit. Very nice. Very good. When I was thinking, quite often it's like there's a sort of
split-second gut feeling, yeah, and you think, yeah, this is right, yeah, this sounds good. Or sometimes it's like I go to my heart and I think, how do I feel about that? And these are both really useful instruments, but they also can be hijacked by something else. So they can tell me the truth, and they can sometimes deceive me. And what we're learning with Raja Yoga is that there's one thing actually, if I use it well and I know how to use it well, will not deceive me. And that's my conscience. And I mean conscience in a much bigger sense than just the moral conscience. The Hindus have a word for it, it's called the buddhi. So it's the intellect, it's the capacity to discern or to distinguish what's true and what's not true, or what's helpful, what's not helpful, what's good for me, what's not good for me. And along with that, I have the willpower to actually decide to do it, because I can be extremely clever. I can know exactly what's the right thing to do, and I do that every 1st of January. I know exactly what I need to do to sort out all my problems. But the capacity to actually work through that and to see it through and to do it, and even when there are obstacles, I keep going. That's a different kind of power. So one is the power to discern or to decide, and then the power to actually, to discern and to distinguish. And the other is the power to, yes, I will do that, and yes, I can do that, and I will continue to do that. And that's very much connected with determination, with willpower. But I'm interested in how this capacity to discern and decide is very much connected with that thing that we call the conscience or the intellect. And there's an apocryphal, getting my words stumbling today. There's an apocryphal story about, and I don't know if actually he said it, that Einstein once said that if I had 8 hours to chop down a wood, I'd spend the first 6 sharpening my axe. And what is my axe? My axe is my intellect or my conscience. It's like my sat-nav. And quite often, I can have the best specification tom-tom, but I don't switch it on. I think, oh, I know the way. Someone told me what to do, I'll do that. And really, the more I can learn to just connect myself, to feel linked to that voice inside me, very quiet voice. And it's become a bit quieter because I've stopped listening to it. And, if somebody doesn't listen to me, I stop talking to them. And it's the same with my conscience. So I have to learn to really listen out with interest to what my conscience is saying, because that is the source of wisdom that I can tap into whenever I need to. Many of you know that this organization has been run by a series of women called, a group of women called Daddies, the senior sisters. And many of you, I think, will have met some of the daddies. Daddy Janki, probably. How many of you have met Daddy Janki? Quite a lot of you, yeah. And there was Daddy Gozar also. And Daddy Janki said something very beautiful. Well, she said many things very beautiful, but there's something that I often refer to. And she said, there is no problem for which the soul itself does not have the solution. We think the wisdom is out there. We think that if I think about it more and more, the solution will come. Probably the less I think about it, the better. And this is where this power of inaction can be useful. And that I think I know my tendency, when something comes up, I think about it, I analyze it, I go over it, I do mind maps for it, I do spreadsheets, I do whatever it is. But mainly I just think. Anyone else do that occasionally? And you go around again and again and again, trying to sort out the problem, thinking of different ways you could sort it out, or different ways it may turn out. And of course, to some extent, that's helpful. But if I keep doing it, I'm just tiring myself out. I'm just wearing out my capacity, when it comes to it, to make the right decision. And so a very good balance is, yes, to look at the facts, to observe what's going on outside in the situation or whatever, but also inside in my own emotions. What am I feeling? What's coming up here? Is there something that's kind of pushing me in a certain direction or avoiding this? But then, okay, then going deeper, beyond, deeper than my thoughts, deeper than my feelings, to somewhere much like at the core of my being. And that is who I really am inside. And many of you are familiar with our teachings. Who I am inside is not Rachel, is not the meditator or the English woman or whatever, the one who's come to Global House today, Global Retreat Center today. Who I really am is that being inside. The soul, the consciousness, that being of light. And so often I get trapped in the straitjacket of my identity of myself as Rachel. And so often when I ask myself a question, should I do this, shouldn't I do this? The answer comes not from the soul, not comes from those core values, but comes from my ego. My identity, of identifying myself as that, as Rachel, and I want Rachel to look good, and I want Rachel to be heard, and I want her to be appreciated and valued, and I want her to get her way, and I want all of these things. And so just recognizing that there are these two I's. You could say that one is a capital I, the soul, the capital I, and the little I, or lots of little I's, which are my various identities. I'm a good meditator, I'm a good daughter, I'm a good teacher, I'm a good fellow resident, whatever it is, whatever I take any kind of pride in and value in, instead of where is the real value. And the real value, and I'm beginning to learn this, but I forget still occasionally, the real value is who I really am inside, eternally, irrespective of what happens to be on the external, irrespective of what happens to Rachel. Who I am inside is that being of peace, of love, of wisdom, of purity. And where would be the best sat-nav for me? Where would be the best reference point for me to go to when I'm thinking about what's the right course of action? It has to be to that part of me, to my own true wisdom. And it's so easy in today's world to get pulled by what people are saying, what the media is saying, what people close to me are telling me is right for me and they know about me, or even what my past is telling me. This worked well last time. This is what I always do. But can I go deeper than all of those influences, all of those habits, all of those patterns, to somewhere, to that place inside of me of stillness and quiet and truth, my inner truth? And I took us just as an exercise earlier, just to that sunset and that beautiful sky and the sparkling stars. But I can take my mind anywhere. But just what I'm trying to do is to separate from this very tight, very rigid awareness that I can have of myself as being this physical identity, this personality, the history, the preferences, and take myself somewhere deeper and connect myself with that inner wisdom. And we all have that inner wisdom. And yes, we all have ego too. And so recognizing that I just need to familiarize myself with that deeper side of myself as much as possible. And that's what we're doing in meditation. That's what we're doing in Raj Yoga. And so inaction, but using inaction in a very active way. And I mean, when we meditate, I remember here actually, it was at a retreat, and someone said, well, I really like this peace, but I don't just want to be peaceful. I want to be happy, I want to be interested, I want to do lots of good things too. And I said, absolutely, spot on. But actually, I will be active, I will be creative, I will have fun, I will express the love and enthusiasm that I have much better if I have a stable basis of peace. If I don't have that basic peace to work from, then I'm unstable, everything will be changeable, and I'll actually come to whatever I come to with a state of neediness. I need to feel stable, I need to feel comfortable, I need you to like me, I need you to agree with me. But if I'm able, through my own practice of silence, of quiet reflection, of stillness, and of connecting with those values inside me, then I don't come with a begging bowl of do this, I need this, give me this, but I come with a fruit bowl of abundance, and I have this, you need this, I have this, I need to use this in my creativity, I've got it. So it's that learning to make myself full, and so then I come to whatever situation is in front of me equipped. I have what tools I need. I have the skills I need, I have the strengths I need, I have the qualities I need. It's very nice in the write-up for this talk. It was said that, in order to make the right decisions, we need patience, we need trust, and we need insight. We have all of those. Each and every one of us has all of those. But I do need to make time to revisit them, to experience them, to re-energize them, and perhaps to rehearse them in a meditation. How can I use this quality? How would tolerance help with this? Or in this tricky relationship I'm in, which one of my powers would really come in handy? And which one of my qualities would really help make that other one comfortable? Whatever it is, this is what I do when I'm meditating. So it's a very active form of stillness. It's not just, I must be peaceful, I must think that I'm a soul, but it's being very creative. So in a way, sometimes we can be very inactively active and very actively inactive. And in a way, it would be good if we had the balance of both, so that when I'm in action, when I'm acting, when I'm performing, when I'm doing things, there is a part of me that is very still and quiet and centered and connected with that inner core. And similarly, when I'm inactive and I'm still and I'm giving myself time for quiet, make sure that I'm alert, that I'm creative, that I'm interested, so that it doesn't just become, oh, I'm sitting in front of a candle, but actually I'm feeling a bit tired, or let's go back to the shopping list of things I need to do. And if that happens, and it does happen, no, not now. I'll come back to you in 10 minutes. I'll come back to you in half an hour, whatever it is. But right now, I'm focused. I'm focused on what I need to think about, what I need to give my attention to. And then when I give my attention to that, the best will come. And it's not that every time I will make the right decision. Sometimes it may not be the right decision, but I've made it, giving it my full attention and coming from that place of a clean heart. And then even if it isn't the right intention, there'll be a way to make amends or to put it right. I can't control everything in the world. I can't control how people are going to react or respond. I can't control how situations will turn out. The one thing that I can take care of and take charge of is how I respond. The way in which I respond, what I do, the manner in which I do it, but also the feelings and the intention with which I do it. And if I stay close to feelings and intentions that are close to my heart, that make me feel comfortable in my heart, then I'll be doing my best. And that's the most, the best contribution I can make. And so before I close, maybe just to reiterate or to recap, so what I'm doing in meditation is I'm finding that balance between acting and not acting, between responding in action, but then responding with a quietness, between doing something and then maybe just allowing something to happen. I remember there was a program on the BBC, it must be 50 years ago, and it was called Don't Just Sit There, Do Something. But actually sometimes I say to myself, Rachel, don't just do something, sit there. So just to make that time, and it can be just a split second, but also during my day, create times for myself just to be with myself, to hear myself, to speak with myself. Quality time, not just, oh, I'm sitting down, I've got half an hour, okay, I'll meditate for half an hour. But make it like a discovery, make it a friendship with myself. Because the closer I am to that real self, the more comfortable and the more I trust, that element of trust, the more I trust that voice inside and like that voice inside, the more it will come to my aid when I really need it. But meditation is, like I was saying before, it's like maneuvers. So the reason I do this every day, many times a day, but certainly bookending my day at the beginning and the end of the day, is that it's practicing, it's rehearsing how I need to think, how I need to behave when something happens. I can know everything about the theory, but if I'm not practicing it regularly, just like a violinist or a golfer, if I'm not practicing and rehearsing regularly, when then I need to make that really good shot or play that really difficult note, I won't be able to do it because I haven't got into the rhythm. So I would really recommend spending a little bit of time every day and make it fun, make it interesting, make it a gift to yourself. It's not a duty, it's a gift. You're investing in your valuable, beautiful self. And so with that, let's perhaps bring this to a close, just recognizing the power of the soul. And in a way, if there's one, the question, action or inaction, what's the solution? And the solution is just spiritual power. Building up my spiritual power. Building it up in terms of that long term, every day, as often as I can, and particularly when I particularly need to, but then in that split second, just give myself 1 or 2 seconds of space before reacting. And that will be the most valuable thing I can do for myself. So I think I'd like to stop now, and I'd like to hear some of your thoughts. I've just shared a few of mine, but I'd like to hear some of yours. And then we'll finish with a meditation at the end. But let's have some feedback from you now. I'd love that.
Hello.
Hello.
That was wonderful, thank you. I think 4 thoughts came. First was in the 60s or 70s, Carlos Castaneda, when he says, patience is not foolishness. Patience is not foolishness.
Beautiful.
And then second, in the 80s or 90s, there was a management speak around which is more important, talking or taking action.
Uh-huh.
And the response was talking because it leads to right action. And if you apply that to yourself as opposed to a group of people, and that applies. But also, and I swallow hard when I'm saying this because it always touches me when I hear it, your colleague Caroline Ward in the 4 Faces, in the first bit she says, if I accept my thoughts and my feelings, the question remains, who am I? I am the observer, the one who's watching, eternal. And then, of course, she talks about the 8 powers of the Shakti, withdraw, let go, tolerate, accept, discern, decide, face and cooperate, And for me, I need structure to stuff, so you've given me that structure, taken me back to having that structure. It's not just, as I say, patience is not foolish, it's not sitting there doing nothing. It's actively working on what's going on for you,
I really love that. I remember Carl. I remember reading his books a long, long time ago.
Cool, yeah.
And yeah, that's lovely. So patience is not foolishness. Sorry, what was it again? It's patience is not... just repeat it again.
Patience is not foolishness. It's one of four, he said. Ruthlessness is not harshness. Sweetness is not weakness, all that sort of stuff, you know. It's sort of a bit cliche-ish, but it's beautiful. So I still read the stuff.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers.
Anything else? But yeah, great.
Yeah, that word conscience. So, how can it be that it's right for one conscience and not for another?
Can you give me an example?
Siblings, all from the same stable, but so early on it's clear that what is absolutely natural and in conscience with one is not with another.
Very good question. And they are all from the same stable, in terms of we're all from one family. But I have never actually had a family of my own, but I was born into one. But we are all extremely different. We come into their body very, very different. And if you are comfortable with the idea of rebirth, and it's fine if you're not, but if you are, then that's our understanding, is that actually we souls come into bodies and we already have our personality traits, and we just express them in a different way in each birth that we have. But even if you're not comfortable with ideas, we come from the same stable, but we have very different lives. So, and even the parents cannot know what happens to children, what they hear at school, what they learn at school. So each one of us is programmed completely differently, even in this one birth, if you only believe in one birth. I was saying to someone the other day, we can't know what another person has been through, even if we've lived with them for 50 years. We can't know everything because we don't follow them everywhere and we don't see things through their eyes. And so it's a very good point, everybody will have a different conscience, but I need to just focus on what is my conscience and empowering that conscience. But you made a very good point, also having that broader vision and understanding that we all have different consciences. We all see the world in a very different way. It's, some are Macs, some are iPads, some are PCs. It's like we're all completely differently programmed and with very different software too. So it's amazing actually that we manage to communicate really. On a lighter note, but just that compassion that yes, it's really important to stick to my principles, but I also have to have that regard and respect for maybe they see things very differently. And as a parent or as a teacher or as a guide or a boss or a friend, I can help to open people's eyes, but in the end it's up to each one to decide. But the more I work on myself and the more my behavior is an example, or people see that actually I'm happier or more comfortable, or I deal with things apparently more easily, then that might work better than the talking. The talking might work, but actually the first emphasis on actually being it myself. And that's where the real work is, I can tell you. So, thank you. Anyone else?
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, please.
I was just thinking that in terms of action, I know I have this trait too, and I've observed it in others where, when you don't want to look at something, you get busy and you start getting busy and you have to stop. And I'm a bit more aware now I need to stop because the busyness is just an avoidance. So I suppose my question, Rachel, is I'm not saying you do this too, but
I do.
But what would be your, what would be your method to, what do you do personally to kind of break? It's a habit, I think. I see it in myself. Yeah. It's a habit. So what are some of your processes or experiences that enable you to begin to come out of that habit if you're not already out of it already?
Yeah. it's interesting that you talked about structure, because I think in order to change a habit, certainly I've always needed some kind of a structure. So I give myself some sort of a benevolent discipline. And whether it's, getting up every hour and just walking around the house, or going outside, or maybe I choose to read something at a particular time, or, so I absolutely agree with you. And there is a kick out of ticking things off your to-do list. It's like, did that. But actually, to what effect? And in some ways, those are kind of not very meaningful actions. Yes, I've done what I said I would do, or I promised I would do, or someone's expecting myself to do. But recently, and I'm not doing it anymore, but actually maybe this is something I can start again. Recently, I gave myself a little challenge called the 4-3-2-1 challenge. And I did it for a few months, and it was very interesting to observe myself. So I promised myself that I would have 4 hours of really good meditation a day, that I'd read spiritual teachings 3 times a day, that I'd have just 2 meals to reduce the time that I'm eating and give myself time to do more something else, and then I'd have an hour of good exercise. And then I had 2 other things: 0 excuses, but 0 guilt if I don't manage it. That was just an idea, it's an example. But you know what? It was great because, and I didn't always manage it, but I felt that I was looking after myself. I felt it was a very kind thing I was doing for myself, because I do recognize that we are very you can be very addicted to action, or, just ticking things off, and that glee when you cross it out. But actually then you're just moving on to the next action. So it's really, quite often you're wanting things to get done so that you can just move on to getting done something else. And really just creating space for myself in my life, just to be. And that's enough. And I think that's the key point. Why am I needing to do so much? It's usually proving something to myself, proving something to other people of my value. I am enough. Each and every one of us is enough. We souls, those beings of peace, those beings of love, those beings of happiness. We're looking for love, we're looking for happiness, we're looking for truth out there. We're running around, we're going places, we're buying tickets, and we don't realize that it's there inside us all the time. And I have to keep reminding myself. And so, yeah, it's a continual process, but it's really, really recommended. And the more I practice it, the better I do respond when things come up. The less I get thrown, the less I kind of get agitated. It still happens, but it's happening less if I can just catch myself in that moment. But also I'm building up a resource, a stock inside myself. And I'm also becoming more and more confident that, yes, people keep telling me, I'm told I'm a soul, and I'm telling myself I'm a soul, but it's not just a theory, because my experience of it tells me, well, that's right. And, this character Rachel is just the character Rachel. And the freedom that I experience from that, personally in my life, but also with other people, they're just the character. That's who they are. They have a perfect right to be that character. I don't need to change them. Freedom. Thank you. Anything else? Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for a very good talk. I sort of really got something out of it. I want to ask you about consequences. To what extent does your assessment of consequences affect your decision making? You said that it's not possible to control others or surrounding circumstances. Maybe you can influence them a bit, but you can't control them. Supposing when you make a very critical decision, you think there are very different consequences for action or inaction. You start off as the way you explained. You look at your inner self, the way that you usually guide yourself. But then you think there are very different consequences here, and maybe the way that I would normally act, true to self, I may not be very happy with the consequences. Whereas if I go the other way. So what I'm trying to say is, making critical decisions, should that really take account of consequences?
Definitely, definitely. No, thank you very much for bringing that. It's not that I just say, I'll do what I feel or whatever. It's very valuable because we are all so interconnected. Everything in this world is so wonderfully interconnected. So everything I do has an impact, and it could be a good impact or it could be a not so good impact. I would just say in terms of consequences that, of course, it's really important to seek as much as possible not to hurt people, not to annoy people, not to cause trouble for other people. But if it's something that really is my principle, then maybe I have to tolerate that. And it's very uncomfortable, but maybe I have to just say, and that's the decision. Do I stick with my principles? Or do I actually, in a very respectful and very gentle way, say, actually, I'm not going to do that. But it's not just what I do, but it's the way that I do it. And it's not expecting other people to approve, and it's not minding even if they're a bit annoyed to begin with. But I'm just saying, I value myself. I have respect for my principles, and I need to stick with this. But if it's not a principle and it's just a preference, fine, and it's much better and everybody will be happier, then great. But if it's something that really my conscience is telling me, this is important, then if I ignore that, I won't be comfortable. And even if others are uncomfortable, if I do follow it, then maybe that's a discomfort I have to bear a little bit, but maybe there are ways around it, and it isn't so black and white. For example, when I started meditating, my mum was saying, "What are you up to? Well, why don't you want to do this anymore? Why, and it took a while, and why don't you want to eat meat anymore? And why don't you want to... But then she said at the end, she said, well, I don't know about this meditation, but what it's done for you is magic. So sometimes you have to, and it's like I really tried as much as possible to be respectful and to explain, well, I just don't want to do that anymore because it's just not interesting. I love my meditation so much, I want to do that. And sometimes, when you change your habits, people can take it as a personal affront, or it's a bit threatening, actually. What else are they going to change? But I think if you have that awareness that I can stick to my principles, but I can also allow them to stick to theirs, or to their strong feelings, but maybe I can also, be soft and gentle and respectful with them, so that it's not so harsh and it doesn't feel like a rejection or a threat. Does that help?
Yes, it does. It was a very good answer. The words that you used there that really impressed me were principles or preferences. So that sometimes, that is actually it, isn't it? Is it a principle or is it just a preference?
And the principle is usually connected with the soul, and the preferences is usually connected with what I'm used to doing, my habits, what makes me feel comfortable. And they're good. Preferences, nothing wrong with a preference. I prefer violets to lavender or whatever it is, so preferences or anything else. But that my principle is that's the voice, that's my voice of strength.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to finish now. But thank you very much for lovely questions, feedback, ideas. I think we were all taking away a lot. So let's just finish with a little bit of meditation together, a little bit of active inaction. Or, yes, that's it. So we just, again, let yourself be comfortable. And be comfortable physically in your body. Just let go of any tension, because you've been sitting for quite a while, so it's fine if you want to shrug your shoulders or wiggle your toes or whatever it is. And just allow your bodies to come into this state of comfortable stillness. It's as if just for a little while you don't need to use this body at all. You don't need to respond to its demands. And you focus on that point of light in the middle of your forehead. Now you can't see it, but you imagine that in the middle of your forehead is a point of light, like a shining star. And this is the consciousness. This is the spiritual energy that is who we really are. And what makes each one of us who we really are? If it's not our bodies, if it's not our jobs or our families or our homes or our cars or our religions, what is it that makes us who we really are? And it's the qualities of this tiny point of light energy. The peace, the wisdom, the joy, the purity, the love. This is what makes me me. This is who and how I really am. Peaceful, wise, joyful, pure, loving. And so I am always a source of wisdom for myself. These qualities, when expressed in my life, through my actions or my inaction, these qualities allow me to express myself in a way that is truly as I am, true to my conscience, true to my principles, true to the beautiful, beautiful being that I really am. And so let me spend time with interest, with enthusiasm, getting to know this true self. I can't see the soul, but I experience it and I express it, because this is who I am. Om Shanti. I, the soul, am peace.